Hello, replay view. Happy Sunday. Good to see everyone. Hello. Everyone is flooding the room. We've got incoming hearts coming in. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for coming in for the lesson. We have a great lesson for you guys. I hope you're as excited as I am. This is going to be a fantastic lesson. Hello, Jacob. Hello, Sketchers. Hello, Kason, Alex, Alexis, The Grid Book, Beetle Percussion, Huei, Keebs. What's up, Alex Hines? Alex, guys, give Keebs53 a follow if you don't already follow him. Grid Book, thank you for sharing. Beetle Percussion, thank you for sharing. I love it when you see people sharing here and it comes down. Thank you very much. So guys, the Twitter share is not happening, so if you wouldn't mind swiping right and follow Beetle Percussion and Zachary and Clinton and Marlon and Alexis and Keebs and Zachary, all these guys. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate you for jumping in here. Have a safe trip home, okay? Thanks for jumping in. You can swipe right and share with your followers on Twitter and Facebook, as well as your Periscope followers. We have a great Sunday lesson for you today. Today, as you know, invite people, fam. Thank you, Mark, Kason, Clinton. Very good. So, you guys already know this because you're tuning in. Thank you for these incoming hearts. And I know that you're going to give it up even more here for our special guest today, the one and only Mr. Devin Koenig.
Hey guys, how's it going?
I don't know if that lived up to the hype that I just set up for you.
I don't think it did.
He's playing it cool for you. He's about to light it up, which is why. So, thanks for jumping in. Drum roll. Do we have any drummers in the room? Kason, what's up? Yeah, Devin. All right, guys. So there is a ton of content coming at you here in a moment. So we're gonna jump into it pretty quick. But before we do, I want to make sure that we give each other a chance to say hello. These lessons are also about not just giving you information and delivering some quality value for you as you continue to get better about drumming, but it's also to build a percussion community. And as you know, many of us are coming in, you start to recognize the same faces here and there. Diddle me this, bum bum. And just make sure you say hello to each other. So one thing that we like to do is tell us where you're watching from. What locations are we coming in from, guys? Tennessee, Greenwood, Indiana, Mentone, South Carolina. Hold up, just crashed. Houston, Mass, Illinois, Pennsylvania. What's up, guys? Texas, Emmett, Kentucky, Goshen. Keebs is in Goshen. Freeport, Colorado, St. Louis, Nashville, Percussive, North Carolina. Let me just recap this real quick. Yep, Dawson. What's up, buddy? Dallas, North Korea. Come on, Jacob. You're about to get blocked here. That's your one strike, Jacob. I'm teasing. What's up, Emmett? LA. Look at them hearts. This is lovely hearts. And guys, and these hearts that are coming up here.
East Lansing. Hold on. Who is that?
Two drummers' mom.
Is that Amanda? I don't know who that is.
Devin's getting stalked over here, guys. So, guys, these hearts, if you're a first-time viewer, first of all, I forgot to introduce myself. Sorry for being rude like that. My name is Huei. I'm a musician here in Los Angeles, California. This is my friend, Devin. Everyone say, what's up, Devin?
How's it going?
And today, we're going to be giving lesson number 7. Every Sunday, we get on here. I get on here and I do Sarah's lesson. And this week, I invited Devin to come on with us. We hung out a couple weeks ago. And we're going to give you the Cliff Notes version of who Devin is, why Devin is an excellent candidate to come on and give the show, and then we're going to tell you about what we're learning today. So, Devin, can you give us the 30-second recap, since, just in case people don't know, I'm sure everyone already knows, but in case someone doesn't know who you are, what would you tell them?
Yeah, so I'm originally from San Jose, California, and then I moved to Michigan, and I got into drum corps in 2012. I started with the Glassman Drum and Bugle Corps out of Toledo, Ohio, then spent 2 years with Fam Regiment. 13 and 14. I was the section leader of the drum line in those 2 years, and then I aged out this past summer with the Bluecoats. And then in the indoor side, I did Rhythm X for 1 season, so that was this past winter. So that's me. And I'm at Michigan State. I'm a senior at Michigan State right now. So.
And what are you doing in Los Angeles here now?
Right now, I'm in an internship with Johnson & Johnson under the Neutrogena branch. So I'll be out here until July. So.
Is Phantom out of Illinois? They're out of Rockford, Illinois.
That's right.
Yeah. And guys, we're gonna teach the lesson through, and then if we have some time at the very end, we will take some Q&A answers, because I know that you guys are definitely looking to maybe ask some additional questions as we go. So we'll do our best, and we'll ask questions periodically as we go as well. Okay, so let's get into the content. We want to make sure we respect your time. Thank you very much, first of all, for being here today. It's a lovely 70 degrees here in Los Angeles, California. And today's lesson is lesson number 7. It's about balance, blend, and touch. Now, why is balance, blend, and touch important? You could be an amazing snare drum, killer chops, virtuosic, but if you get in the line of snare drummers and you can't play with other percussionists, then you're kind of missing the point. Would you say that's like a fair assessment?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. How often have you seen guys who are amazing players, but once they get in the line, maybe they tend to overplay or they underplay and they don't make the adjustments? I mean, music is a living, breathing thing, and you've got to adjust in the moment. So today we're going to share some topics of things that we've learned over the years, things that we teach our students, and for me, these are things that seem second nature now, but they're things that I very clearly remember at a point saying like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to think or do these things. So can't wait to share these things with you. Okay, you can find this handout. It's a free PDF download on my website. It's Huei-Yuan.com, and for all my Periscope lessons, we have Huei-Yuan.com/Periscope, which has a table of contents, and then if you add a slash at the end of that, you can say lesson number 7, and then this free PDF handout is there for you to help you, and you can use this. You can just drum along with us. We're going to teach everything to you, or you can just check it out after there as well. Is lesson 6 on there now? Yep, it's also on there as well. Check it out. If you can't find it out for some reason, just send me a message and we'll get going. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about today is the term balance. So can you guys, in maybe like less than 5 words, just tell us what you think balance means. What's up, Jay? Balance, like what in a musical context? How would you balance, or why would you balance? No problem. Thanks for jumping in. And this was interesting too, because before we started the lesson, we talked. I talked to Devin about like my ideas, and he added some things, and then we kind of arrived at a conclusion. Listening in, yep. Equality between parts, pyramid of sound, conformity to one musical idea, dynamic control, blending, and we're going to distinguish between dynamics and blending in just a moment. An equal blend of all parts. Yep, good. So you guys are using. So we can see how the term blending and balancing are starting to intertwine, because it's part of it, but we're actually going to differentiate the terms here in just a moment. Dynamic. Very good, Zachary. Equal musical concentrator player. Excellent. Okay, so we're already all on the same page here. Awesome definition, Keeps. And guys, feel free to chime in here as well if you want to add to the conversation. For our purposes today, we're talking about balance as being strictly about volume. Okay? Now, an example of balancing is you could have one player. Here's the story of where I learned about balancing. It's my first year marching regiment in 2001, and I'm standing in the line, and we're playing a listening game. Okay, and so we're having. I think we did this too when you're at regiment, where we would have the center snare start with 8s, and they're playing 8s, and the center snare changed their dynamic from forte to piano, and we all had our eyes closed. And I was standing next to Jonathan Morell, who was amazing center snare, and I'm playing 12 inches, and he switches to 3 piano, and I keep playing 12 inches, and I don't make the adjustment. And my snare tech, Plo, basically loses his mind on me and tells me what an idiot I am, rightly so, that I didn't hear him play. Because what it demonstrated was I wasn't listening to Jonathan. I wasn't actually trying to balance to him as I was playing. So this is a little exercise that you can do. And for our purposes, balancing is matching volume to the player next to you. Now, you can get into further definitions of balancing, where if you have the pyramid of sound, I think someone mentioned that, where you have maybe the low end needs to be a little stronger so that it does sound balanced. But for our purposes right now, balancing just means adjusting and matching the volume of the player next to you. Okay? So what are the things that affect height? And feel free to jump in here anytime if you have a additional point that you want to add in. Is typically what affects your volume that you get from your instrument? Can you guys just throw out what variables do you control that affect the volume of your playing? Velocity, touch. Yep, what else? Velocity, touch. Stick height, excellent. Height, stick height. Interp, like the approach to the instrument maybe. Yeah, and there's one more that I'm looking for before we jump into the explanation for this. Where you hit the drum, excellent. The playing area, where you're playing the drum. Are you playing the center of the drum, closer to the edge, etc.? Okay, so for example, let's say Devin plays, right? And I'm gonna play a different height than Devin. Let's try it on one pad first, because Devin's got a fancy snare pad, but this will give you guys an idea. So Devin's gonna play like general 8s, and you're gonna hear me play something different, and you can see how we're not balancing. Not balanced, and then I'm gonna do my best to balance up to what Devin's playing. So right now I'm underbalancing, right? I'm too soft. And now I'm overbalancing. Right, I'm playing louder than Devin. And now I'll come down. I'll try to match Devin's height. One, two, three. And notice that Devin changed heights, and immediately it made me go, okay, I need to adjust as well. Cool. And it's very simple, right, guys? You don't have someone saying, hey, play louder, play softer, you're too low, you're too high, which you do actually need to do. Like, the tech's going to stand up front and say, like, your 12 is a little too high or too low. But, I mean, this is just part of being a musician. You're adjusting, listening, and adjusting in the moment. Do you have anything to add to that for balance?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a constant awareness. Like, as a guy that's, like, outside of the center, you just always have to be willing to adapt and just willing to go. Even if you believe that the person inside of you is maybe not doing what they're supposed to correctly doing it, the way to get everyone to blend together, balance together, is just to have everyone go with the person inside of them. So, yep.
So, a very easy way to check this, so if you're a section leader, if you're a tech, or you're playing in line with your friends, is you've got to use your ears. Obviously, you listen, right? And the second thing is you've got to play the right height. If you're playing the same heights, you're already in the ballpark at least, okay? And once you can do those two things, that'll take us to the next step, which is blending, okay? Do you guys have any questions about balancing before we go on? And do you have your phone, Devin? Maybe just so we can kind of periodically check the time and make sure we're on track.
5:16.
Perfect, right on track. Any questions about balancing? And if not, then we're going to move on into the next blending section. And if you think of it later, no problem. Stroke, yep. That's actually where we're going next, Jacob. We're going to talk about blending, because your stroke and your approach to the instrument is going to be height, velocity, and placement. Like how high to play.
I mean, those are all things that you have to take into consideration. Like the height, obviously, you use the visual cues, in your peripheral vision to make sure that's the same. And then velocity, I'd say that's more of a blend thing, because that plays into how the drum sounds and stuff. So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah. And then placement, like where you play in the head, also affects with blend.
Yeah.
Okay. So for our purpose, just very quickly to recap, those are the same three you asked about earlier. Those are the three you asked about earlier. Not following you, Matt, but jump in. Maybe this next part will make more sense when we explain it here in a second.
Yeah.
So, balance for our purposes, very simply, is you're matching volume to the sound inside of you. You're trying to get the same volume, same sound, same volume. Okay. The next thing is blending. Okay. Now, the things that affect your blend, which is the analogy that I use is, imagine if the center snare is a cup of like red water. Okay, like food coloring, red water. And then you've got someone else who's got another glass of water, is another player, and their cup of water is a blue glass of water. You know what would have made a cool lesson is I actually had these cups of water to demonstrate this right now. If you take the blue water and you mix it with the red water, you're going to get you get a different color, right? And you get purple. As opposed to if you have a cup of red water and you have another cup of red water, if it's the same color and you add them together, you're going to get another bigger cup of red water, right? Now, the color in this instance is the timbre, or the sound that you're getting from the instrument. I'm going to define timbre in just a second. And the other analogy I like to use is like how red it is, how deep the red it is, or how like faded red it is. That might be the dynamic, okay? So how do you affect the timbre of the sound? First off, what is timbre? you guys have any ideas of what timbre is, and I'm going to give you, like, for teachers and for students, timbre. You've probably seen the word before. It's spelled T-I-M-B-R-E. It looks like timbre, but it's pronounced timbre. Sound quality is definitely part of it. The resonance of the drum. Okay, good. Resonance, sound quality. A couple more definitions here, and then I'll clarify. Bright, dark, good.
Yeah.
Tone, bright, excellent. Total sound of the line, excellent, excellent. Intonation usually refers to the pitch, like how high or low, but intonation, like the intonation of it might be a part of it. Mutual texture of the instrument, excellent. Texture, these are all great terms. The example I always give my students when I'm explaining timbre for the first time is that timbre is the characteristic quality of a certain sound. What are the overtones or the composite overtones of the sound that make it characteristic of that sound? The example I give is when you call home and your mom picks up the phone and she says, hello, you know immediately that that's your mom or your dad or your significant other or your brother or your sister. You recognize their voice. It's the same reason that when you hear a marching snare drum, you can say, oh, that's a marching snare drum, not a concert snare drum, right? Now, on the same marching snare drum, the tuning is obviously very important, but we could play the same snare drum and get two different sounds completely from the drum, depending on how you play the instrument, which we refer to as approach, or where you play the drum, which is also going to, if you play dead center versus like mid or edge or even on the wood, you're going to get different timbres from the drum. And part of blending with the person next to you is getting the same timbre, getting the same quality of the drum from the drum, which we call the approach to the instrument. Okay, so the first exercise that we do for this is we play like an eights game. And I do this with all my lines when we first talk about blending. And we're going to actually scroll forward to blending, and then we're going to scroll backwards to touch. Devin's going to show some exercises that he uses when he works on his touch. Okay, so the first exercise, if you look on the handout, is this balance and blend exercise, and it's basically just eights. And it goes like this. So let's imagine Devin is the center snare of the line. Okay, and teachers, real quick, the way I do this is whenever I teach balance and blend, I always balance and blend to the student first. And we talked about this earlier too, about like recognizing your outside guy, which we'll talk about. I always balance and blend to the student first so that they hear what it sounds like and feels like when someone is balancing blending to them. And then I say, okay, now you balance and blend to me. Okay, so in this exercise, you're going to watch, and you can do this with us too. If you have your 6 in your pads, we're going to bring you in. Devin's going to play eights, and then I'm going to start, and then I'm going to explain to you what's happening as we do it. Okay, so just eights off the right hand. Let's just do right hand.
Cool.
Yeah.
See how bad at blending he is? Alright, here we go.
Take 2. One more time for me. Keep going. Okay, so what just happened? Other than the fact that I'm more powerful than Devin and I knocked a stick out of his hand.
Right.
I thought you guys were professionals. Who's that heckling us? Frank? Can you elaborate on that? I don't have the music. No problem, Jacob. Waited till you could only hear one. Yep. And there's actually, I mean, that's the target, but there's something else that we're trying to do. It's easier to do when you're on an actual drum, but for our purposes, we're just explaining. So this is the exercise. Let's say you've got a snare line full of guys, right? Devin's the center snare. He starts playing, and then you add from the outside in. Okay, so the first guy plays, Devin plays, and then the next guy next to Devin, imagine I'm standing next to center. I listen to Devin play, and what I'm trying to assess is I'm saying, okay, Devin's playing that high, he's playing that loud. I'm going to try to come in and get the exact same sound from the drum, from my drum, that Devin's getting. Right? I'm trying to clone Devin's sound so that we have 2 of the exact same sounds coming out at the same time. okay? Now, the things you want to listen for, and you saw me stop and start a couple times, I intentionally did that to give you an example of if when you come in a little bit late or a little bit early, a little bit loud or a little soft, then stop and try again and come back in. Does that make sense? You stop if you're unsuccessful. Yeah, so you stop. And the goal is to come in on the first note exactly blended, right height, right sound quality, approach the instrument. And then as you blend, this is like Devin starts, second guy starts. Once that's a blended sound, then you add the third snare player, and then the fourth, and the fifth, and you work your way out. And eventually you have 9, 10, 5, however many snares on your line, you'll have one sound coming from the line.
And also, to go off of that, what he was talking about with stopping when you don't come in completely correctly, that's very important that you have your line do that, because one tendency of a lot of drummers to do is they'll kind of morph into the sound. They'll start off like really quiet and then lift their approach up because they're kind of scared to like play that first note incorrectly. What you want to do is just go for it. Just give your best judgment and then start right away. And if it's off, then it's off. But stopping and then starting again is going to teach you to have a little bit faster of a learning curve, and you'll just be able to jump in right away. And that's what you have to do as a snare drummer. Like, we're going to make a mistake every once in a while, and we got to jump back in right away. So that's going to teach you that flexibility just to react quickly. So, yep.
The Billy Spicer. Is Billy Spicer on the scope? William Spicer. Do you know Billy?
I've heard of him.
Billy, we'll talk about it after the scope. But Billy, if you're here, thanks for jumping in the scope, bud. Okay, so let's talk about things that affect your blend. That's like a blending exercise you can do. Things that affect your blend. I'm going to play normal 8s, and you're going to watch Devin do something different with his approach and see if you can see how he's not blending, and then you should also be able to hear. I don't know how well you can hear it on this pad, but see if you can see what he's doing to not blend with me, okay? So same game, but Devin's gonna be example student B of what not to do. Hi, Huei and Devin. Carl Drum Tech. What's up, bud? Thanks for jumping in, Carl. It's so funny to see you do this. Like, you can't even keep a straight face. Devin never smiles when he's drumming, by the way. Can you stop smiling?
I'll try.
Alright, tell me if you can see what he's doing. Type in the comments, what is Devin doing? It's just hilarious. You never see Devin do this, which is why this is so funny. He's playing differently than you are. Squeeze. How to explain it? I don't know how to explain it.
Downstroke, yeah.
Heights. Not so much the timing. I mean, the timing, it's more about what you see and hear. Not legato, using all wrist. And stop. Very good. Okay, so yeah, you guys are totally getting the answer. You can see.
Hurts now.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, man. Oh, we'll stretch it out here. Okay, so Devin, you want to explain what you're doing and like? I mean, many of you said the correct answer, but
yeah. So I essentially just took it from a downstroking approach where everything was super mechanical and broken off from the wrist. So I didn't use any arm in that. Nothing legato. I didn't let the drum kind of resonate off the stick resonate off the pad. I was just lifting, carrying the stick every single time. So, and as a result, like, I don't know if you could hear it on the mic, but like, it was very clear that like my sound was a lot harsher, a lot drier, dead sounding, whereas his was just singing off of the pad every time. So me.
Right.
Yep.
And so the approach, and guys, we're not saying that there's a right way or a wrong way to do it. There's many different ways to drum, right? Every group is going to have a different approach to the instrument. But what's important as a player is that you have to be able to adapt and adjust your approach to fit the culture or the established approach to the instrument.
Yep.
Now that's like over blending, or like you're not blending because you're overstroking it. You can also feather the drum and play too low. You've seen guys probably who play like they're playing the right height, but there's no sound coming out of the instrument. You know, and we talk about sound quality where you do want to get some beef. You know, you got to push some air through the drum and make those bottom snares resonate. So you can play too light, and you can actually play too strong. You can do this exercise. I've found that one of the best ways to do this too is actually to have two guys play on the same drum.
Yeah, same drum, yeah, for sure. Because I mean, that's gonna really, when you are playing with the same exact approach, there's this weird like phenomenon that happens with the drum. You feel this like flubbery kind of.
What did you say?
Flubbery. It's like
Is that a word?
Dolphin fat.
Can you guys look up the word flubbery?
Flubber. It's a phrase.
Flubbery.
You just feel this like weird, it's almost like the head is bending every time you hit it, because you're hitting it so perfectly in time, and like you're hitting it with the same velocity and touch and everything. And so it just feels right. It just feels perfect.
Pop.
And yeah, that pop. Yeah.
Alexis, yeah.
Yeah, so
the movie Flubber. No,
yeah.
Different Flubber. We're talking about popping syndrome. And so, and guys, that's when we talk about the instructor. That's why it's important that you, as the instructor, balance and blend to the student so they experience that pop.
Yeah.
Right? And students, when the instructor or the tech walks up to your drum, that's your opportunity to try to feel and find that pop. And if you're not popping with the tech or the instructor, it's your job as the student to adjust so that you do get that pop. And you're blending and balance. Now, once they figure and feel they know what that feels like, the instructors, you say, okay, now students, now you balance and blend to me. Okay? Makes sense, guys? See Frank. Thanks, Frank. Thanks for coming in here. Are there any questions about balancing and blending before we move to the touch section? Same velocity and frequency. Yeah. Playing area, too, is a big part of it. If everyone's playing the center and you're playing like your bead placement, Devin remembers this. When that first summer in 2013, relentlessly every day would harp on the snares about their bead placement. Even got to the point, I don't know if you remember this, where I would stand over them, like over their shoulders, and take photos of their bead placements, and then I would show them, and their beads would be like this. I'd be like, "This is you. This is you. Take this personally that your beads are like this." And I always say, "You guys, I could drive an 18-wheeler truck between those beads." Right?
Yeah.
But put your beads together. It's one of those things that's so simple and so easy if you just pay attention. And once you train yourself to do it correctly, then you don't have to worry. You always see guys like this or like this or like this. Just, it's a simple thing.
And someone asked on the comments, they said, what if someone isn't adapting? The best advice I have for that is have them, if they're not the center, play with your center. Have them just check out the way both your center and the person that they're next to, if that's you or someone else, have them just play with them after rehearsal or on a lunch break or something. Just have them kind of try and mold their sound, because it'll be very obvious when they're playing on the same surface. Like, it'll be very clear that you're not playing the same way. So yeah.
Cool. Hey, friends, let's bounce. Catch the replay, though. Thanks very much, Carl. We'll see you later. Have a good weekend. See y'all later. How can you do that without them getting offended or rude?
Clinton, that's something we talked about in the pre-hang. If you weren't in that conversation, we talked about how ego can play a huge part and be like a big detriment. What you want to do is you want to make sure that if you're the center of the line, that you set an example that you guys are all a team and you're all working towards a common goal. So you got to be all on the same page, and you got to have a center snare that's going to set that example and say, this is our approach, this is how we're going to do it. And if that's not happening, then maybe it's a discussion between the center snare or the section leader or whatever and the tech, the instructor, because everything has to be solidified and set out before you start applying that. So, because if it's not that way, then you got 9 guys working in different philosophies working against each other. So
I think also having a culture within the line that everyone is trying to get better. Like, nobody's perfect. I mean, it's funny whenever you have this thought in your head where you get a piece of feedback and they say, hey guys, in this section we're pushing slow or fast. If you ever have that voice in your head that says like, well, that's not me, they're not talking to me, that's usually a bad sign, right? Always say like, okay, consider it, was it me, and just be open to taking feedback. Don't get too confident that just don't let your ego get in your way. We can talk more about this later. Yeah. Can you mention the comment about what was it? Ego, people. No, it's gone. Okay, let's move on. We'll keep talking. All right. Now, I've been doing too much talking, and at this point, I want to turn it over to Devin. When we hung out in Manhattan Beach last week, we hung out for like another hour or so afterwards, and Devin showed me some really cool touch exercises and how they work on touch. I was like, and that was kind of the idea, to have Devin come back on and show this to you guys. I found this super valuable and helpful. It's on this handout. And Devin's going to talk a little bit about, what touch means, how he practices touch, and why it's important for getting your line on the same page.
Yeah, cool. So, one thing that we talked about a lot at Bluecoats when I was marching there is what's almost more important, just as important, but almost more important than the way that you approach the drum, what kind of technique you're using, is how the stick feels in the hand. And then as a byproduct of that, how the drum sounds. You know, is it a really harsh sound, or is it a really light yet full sound? And so what we would do is we'd work on something called touch, and there's many different meanings, but the way we took it was the way that the stick feels in the hand and how your hands feel when you're playing notes. And so if one of the philosophies that we tried to kind of accomplish was the soft hands approach. So if you imagine like just taking your hand and just kind of dropping it down on the pad, that's how we would approach essentially a primary stroke or something that was a high note. We would make sure that it feels super weighted and just super beefy, right? And then we do the same thing with our taps. We would not mechanically lift them, you know, with an all wrist approach. And I don't want to like bash on any groups or say that's wrong or anything. Many groups have different approaches, but in our view, what it was this was a way to do it and match everyone's sound a lot easier. You know, because it's super natural. If you hand a stick to someone who's never played drums, they're just gonna go like this. They're not gonna mechanically lift and be all wrist and anything like that. They're just gonna want to play the drum. So this is something that we would take super basic exercises. So if you look on your PDF, we have some bucks, and that's like our base. That's our ultimate skeleton. So someone said how much pressure on the comments. That's absolutely correct. The amount of pressure that you have in the stick is going to determine how harsh or how open your sound is. So for example, if I'm playing bucks, right? So I'm going to use this pad here.
There's also a question too about how much pressure is applied to the fulcrum, if you work that in.
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah. So if I'm playing bucks, when I play my notes here, I want you to see if there's a difference between these two versions of bucks. So here's version A, and here's version B. So you guys can sound off in the comments and let me know like what differences did you notice between A and B. B was more open. Yep. B is relaxed. Yep. These are all good things. A sounded heavier. Yeah. Tense. Yep. A was super tense. Yeah. So what I was essentially trying to do is really death grip the stick in version A, right? And really carry the stick up and down. Whereas in the second one, I was just kind of letting the stick travel and letting all this mass. We have to use this, right? We have all this weight on top of the stick, so why not let that produce the sound instead of carrying it, you know? Why not just let that dominate? And the same thing goes for the tap as well. We want our taps to sound really nice and full. We don't want to kind of feather tap them. And that usually comes from being too mechanical about it. And it also can be harsh too, when you're super low and you're trying to be mechanical and squeeze it. So just let them happen. It's very easy to keep it low, but still have a full sound quality because I'm letting that weight on top of my hand take over. And then there was a question about the fulcrum. When I'm playing a tap, I'm not really too much thinking about squeezing at the fulcrum point, which on the right hand is here, right? This is our contact point here, and then on our left, we have it here. So with the right hand, I'm not really thinking about it too much on the taps. So something that you might want to do is just play bucks and pay attention to how the stick feels. How does the stick feel in your hand when you're playing it? And also, it'd be a good thing to play this on a drum, because then what you can do is listen for, is it very open? Does the drum sound natural, or does it sound super choked off, short sound? That's how we don't want it to sound, right? And so this is the most basic thing, and a lot of you are probably saying, "Oh, why are we doing such basic things?" I mean, I'm busy playing, you know, paradiddles and rolls and all this stuff. The reason is because everything essentially will boil down to a tap and accent in a lot of the stuff you play. For example, if I'm playing paradiddles, all I'm doing is if I take out one hand, right, and then take out the second part of the diddle, all I'm doing is this. I'm doing bucks, right? And then if I were to build it back up, right? It's all boiling down to that skeleton. So if you don't know how to master the touch of just the buck, right? If you don't know how that's going to feel, then how do you expect to do it with a much more complex rhythm or a faster tempo? So we got to go back all the way to 101, to basics, and look at how does the buck feel. And then as you can see on that exercise, I go through and add partials. So I'm going to play you through the whole exercise right now, and I want you to listen how I don't change the touch. I don't change the approach when I add more things in. So this is the whole exercise. Cool. So, and then there's one more variation where I add a paradiddle. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But that's essentially the exercise. And so you can see how it adds in a partial. But what we have to, and the point of that is so that as it gets more complex, we don't lose focus on that skeleton. Because remember, we're all going back to the skeleton and remembering how that feels. Do you have anything to add on that?
Well, it's funny, like, I mean, guys, and Devin's playing a basic exercise right now, but if you were to watch Devin throw down, like, Devin can play, and you see how much time and attention he's putting on these fundamentals. The other day I was watching a Periscope, and someone was practicing, someone was doing their hashtag Huei-5 and someone got on and wrote in the comment, can you play something harder? Like, play something harder. Like, can you do some stick tricks and play fast and ram and jam something? I mean, I think the people who are watching in the room right now, you guys know how important it is, tap, 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 if you don't have good fundamentals and you can't maintain the same touch through the basics, as you, and like we've talked about this in previous lessons, it's an additive process, right? As you add additional notes, additional skill sets, that foundation is still there. It's like trying to build a house on a plot of sand as opposed to a plot of concrete. If you don't have those solid fundamentals, you're gonna see problems start popping up later. That's when your heights get weird, your timing gets funny, the sound quality is not consistent, and there's no way you're gonna balance and blend if you don't have consistent touch as you go through.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're trying to play with a bunch of other people, if you have all these people that haven't gone back to basics, it's going to be so hard to clean that. It's going to be so hard to get those guys to blend because they're all coming from different backgrounds and different approaches, and a lot of people haven't taken the time to go all the way back to basics and see how it feels in the hand and up to the complex level. So, and it's just good for like how the stick feels in your hand when you get more complex. Like, my hands get super tired when I try to play a lot more complex things without thinking about the skeleton. Like, for example, with those paradiddles, I can do this all day just like feeling good with this. That's not strenuous, but it would be a couple of years ago when I was just like, oh yeah, paradiddles, I'm just gonna stroke out everything and use all wrist. Like, that's way like more taxing on all the muscles, and you don't have to do that. You really don't. Some lines like to do that. They like to use like an all wrist approach. I know that's how it was kind of back in the day. It was like a 100% wrist or almost, and that's what you can clean it. It's just, in my experience, it's way easier to blend an approach when you have a very relaxed, open legato approach. And a lot of people like kind of argue with that and say, oh, you can't do complex things. Like, it's not true at all. You can definitely do all those complex things. It's just, it takes time and it takes diligence from going for the basics and speeding it up. So
let's do a time check, and then maybe we can play through each of these lines a couple times. And guys, if you have your 6 in your pads, you can drum along with us. Do I hear the Pacific in the background? No, it's actually just the road. We're about 15 minutes east of Santa Monica. It sounds like a good deal.
It's 42.
42? Okay, all right. So we're going to play through a few of these variations, and then we're going to take some questions here in a moment. Where do we play march? We'll take some Q&A at the end, guys. So is this tempo okay? Or do you want to go a little faster or slower?
Just a little bit faster, probably. It's good.
I always play a game with my students where I have them guess the tempo, and I say you should be able to guess the tempo within 8 beats. So, do you guys have any guesses as to how fast this tempo is? Let's just throw some numbers out here real quick. Best guess. 134, 120, 120, 110, 116, 120, 130, 120, 125. Excellent. Not bad, guys. So your goal is to be within 8, right? Yeah. This is just your stock 120. Okay. All right. So, what do you think? First line? Let's just do the framework.
Just the bucks?
Yeah, just the bucks. The framework of the exercise is just bucks twos, guys. So we'll play this a couple times. Welcome to play with us. You can tap on your phones if you don't have your pad. And I'm gonna balance and blend to Devin, okay? One more. Cool. Questions? All right, that's the framework, and now we're going to start building on it. Additive.
And one thing before we move on to more complex stuff, I don't know if you noticed that sometimes anytime we didn't really agree, it was always the left tap. The left tap after that first transition right here, that left tap was either late or early from one of us, probably him. But essentially what was happening was...
It's the last time he's going to be on the show, by the way.
So what was happening essentially was we lost the focus going from the right hand, the end of the right hand going into the left. So the one thing you got to remember is it's got to always feel the same. So a lot of times what we do when we have a hand transition, we rush it because our hand is like tensed up and it's not ready to go. So make sure when you're transitioning hands that the prep is natural. It's not this all of a sudden, no, it's and one. You know, if you play 8s, if I tap off 8s, you're not going to start playing all of a sudden like boom right into it. You're just going to naturally lift. So you got to do that when there's hand transitions coming into play. So
the question was, do you lift your arm or do you just rotate the wrist? You would use whatever stroke you use when you're playing.
Yeah, it should be exactly what you do when you actually play 8s. So in between each stroke. So if I'm using all mechanical, all wrist, then yeah, I would only prep with the wrist, but I like to use just a natural kind of 50-50 lift of the wrist and a little bit of arm, because that's how I play 8s. When I play 8s, I don't constrict the arm. I let it move. I let it kind of naturally breathe with the wrist. So that's how my prep's going to be. So.
And real quick, guys, when we're drumming, I mean, please grab your sticks and your pads out so that you can actually do this with us. Imagine you're sitting out here on the rooftop with us and drumming. And then when Devin's talking, go ahead and tap some hearts from him so you can see if this, I mean, sometimes we're not sure if this information is making sense to you guys or, yeah, there you go. So it's just, as we're rotating between playing and talking, and this also helps us let us know that the reception's still coming through. Okay, let's do the next layer.
Sweet. So now we're just going to add the left partial, so the second partial, to make 3 notes. Cool.
One more. And guys, I don't know if you can, like Devin pointed out before, it takes a few reps because as you're doing these basic exercises, it's a great way to kind of calibrate yourself to the player next to you, right? Everyone has a little idiosyncrasies of things that make them characteristic to what they do. And as you're doing this, you're just kind of getting everyone calibrated. So instead of looking like this, it starts to look like and sound like one person.
Yep.
You want to talk about how, like, what you're trying to maintain as you add on these partials? You can talk about.
Yeah, so I'm always thinking about that soft hands approach, and I'm thinking specifically about the tap. I'm thinking about how I'm kind of not ignoring this left partial, but I'm making sure this still stays there. The exact placement and the feel as I add in. It's all about that skeleton that you got to think about the whole time.
And it's easy to do it right now as we're just going da-ga-da. It's still pretty easy to feel that accent tap, bop-bo-bop-bo. But we're going to start adding some more stuff here in a second. It's going to get a little more tough, but keep thinking about that.
Yep.
Okay?
So now we're going to take that second partial away and then delay to the third partial. So now we're going to play. Cool, so that's the pattern. Still, remember, we're just playing this. Right? Just adding one partial.
You have to think that as you play it.
Yep.
One more.
So in this one, the most point of disagreeing is the same basic thing, the left tap after the accent. It's a little more awkward in this scenario because we're waiting for that first tap, right? Because it's just a buck. So you got to make sure that even though you're playing more notes now, when it transitions to the left hand, we still got to give that full space until that buck to start those 16 notes. So you just got to be very deliberate with all the spaces. And if you do this, if you put in the work at the easy stages, it's going to help massively when you add in a billion 16 notes surrounding it. So
we've had some teachers who ask, like, how do I clean my snare line? How do I get a snare line to play the rolls together? How do I get a snare line to play the paradiddle-diddles together, the paradiddles together? This legwork that you do early on in the season for basics, and you do throughout the season, you're calibrating the players, you're reminding everyone what it feels like to play the same kind of touch all the way through. Let's do that same thing again and think about what Devin said, which is minding the space. You know, if you've been to the UK, mind the gap. Gary, I don't know if Gary's on today, but you got to mind that space and make sure that you're not rushing to the left hand or that first left tap.
Same.
Yeah, I'll do the same thing a couple times.
And so hold on a second. So in that rep, I don't know if you heard that, but I think both of us actually rushed the very end, the very last one on the right hand. So you got that tap right there. We were just thinking, oh, it's just a transition going to the next one. So we rushed it. So it sounded like this. I don't know if you could tell, but I slightly rushed that tap. So again, you got to be deliberate everywhere in the exercise. So.
It's terrible. Cut.
Sorry, I solo.
And take it away, Devin.
Remix.
Yeah. And guys, I don't know if you can tell us too, like, it's getting more together as we play this. Devin and I didn't play together beforehand today, but as we're doing this, I can start to feel like it's getting tighter, right? Which is good. Does the tacit hand lift for the inner beat?
So as we were talking about before, wait for the inner beat. The tacit hand. Oh. So he's referring to like that.
Oh, is there like a prep?
Honest, yeah. I wouldn't really think about it too much. It should be natural. That's the biggest thing. So don't mechanically like lift for it like in all wrist stroke. I would just treat it just like the taps on the right hand. So heard the term tacit. The tacit is the hand that's essentially not playing. So like in this one, that left hand is just kind of waiting to insert that inner beat every once in a while. Right? So,
yeah.
Yep.
Let's take some more questions at the end, guys. We're going to keep moving here because I want to make sure that we get all this information in our hour.
Cool.
Do you know how we're doing time-wise?
We are at 53.
53. All right. Next variation.
So now we're going to add in all the 16 notes. Cool. But we're still going to stop on the and of 4. So here we go. All right?
Yeah, take it down.
And make sure you're still thinking about the buck skeleton. That's not working.
I don't know if you guys feel this way, but for me, this is where it starts to get a little like, you know, I'm not. I have to actively think about bop boop bop boop bop boop, because the tendency is to start thinking 1E into 2E into 3E into 4E, and you're thinking the composite. But see if you can actually think and feel both at the same time with more attention to the original skeleton. Do you guys count off subdivisions beforehand? Do you guys count off like in your head, or do you like tap off? You can hear Devin, the way Devin's tapping off. I mean, there's lots of ways you can tap. You can go bop, right? If you need a long tap off, or just bop 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 boop bop boop. Right. A lot of times you see guys who model what it should sound like. That's a great way to do it too, if you're teaching, especially if you want them to go. Your tap off could be, and then you demo it.
Yep.
Everyone play. So you're giving a model for what's done. Okay.
Yep.
We need to keep going, guys, so that we don't run out of time. But all these are in the handouts as well, so you can catch up and then watch the replay, of course. Okay.
Cool. So this last variation, we're going to play with the mind a little bit and try to get us to get off focus, off track. So we're going to add a paradiddle in the last variation. So the last 4 and is now going to be a diddle into the left hand.
More.
Cool. So this one really plays with your brain because you want to say, it's a diddle, I'm going to change my approach completely, because we obviously play a lot of roles in drumline, so we need to know how to apply this touch feeling to diddle. So we got to make sure that we don't tense up or rush the space or anything like that. It's got to be the same as everything else. So one thing that you can do that's really good is have someone that you're playing with play just 16th note taps underneath you the entire time, and then add in. And you have to be just dead center, locked in on that grid, because they're giving you just this perfect balanced low end rhythm. So you have to fit into that, right? So this is a good way to just test. Okay, you can do it with bucks, you could do it with adding in one partial, but can you do it when you mix it up a little bit and have a diddle at the end of a phrase?
Yep.
So,
all right, guys. There's so much more stuff that we want to tell you guys about, but I do want to respect your time, and hopefully this has been enjoyable and helpful for you guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of recap the lesson very quickly here, and we're going to end the lesson. But if you'd like us to jump back on, we're going to just maybe do like 10 more minutes, because I think Mark is traveling today, so he's not doing a scope today. So we're going to jump back on for just like a short post-lesson hang, but this is where the official lesson is going to recap and end up, so that we can take some questions and we'll do a post-lesson hang afterwards, okay? So let's recap. Today we talked about balance, matching volume, blend, matching the approach, the playing area, getting the same sound from your drum as the person next to you, and then Devin's talked a bunch about touch.
Yep.
How would you recap touch just for the
just always, no matter what you're doing, try to take it from the back to basics and think about the way that the stick feels in the hand, you know? And what you can do is take all your complex stuff, all your music that you have for your school, and try to break it down. What are the basic rhythms behind those rhythms that you can just play on one hand to just break down how it feels, and then try to bring it back up to the complex part of it, and then see if you can keep the touch the same.
And you don't have to practice touch with only this like this isn't the touch exercise. You can practice touch with any basic exercise that you already used with your drum line, but just the way we talk about it and think about it, that's the key to approaching touch.
Yep, sure.
The last thing I want to mention is that notice that when in this lesson, I was following Devin, and it's a good experience for me too, because as someone who spends the majority of their time as the teacher, I'm used to being the one that's setting the example and having someone follow. And this lesson, I had a good time because I got to practice listening and following Devin. And I could feel little tendencies where, because I'm looking for Devin, maybe I push a little fast or I drag a little slow. And being able to do both is a skill. Being the guy who's setting the example and being the guy who can follow, that's a whole nother skill set in there. Okay? All right, guys. First off, I want to thank Devin so much for coming on today's guest lesson. I hope you guys had a great time, learned a lot from him. If you want Devin to come back on for the lesson, make sure you send us a message, let us know, give us some feedback about the lesson. Thank you for spending your Sunday with us. We had a good time getting to share this information with you. Make sure you share the replay before you leave so your friends can catch the scope in case they weren't able to catch it. Thank you, Devin. Thank you, Devin. Thanks, bro. Absolutely. I mean, this guy's the man, and I'm really glad. He showed me a bunch of this after we hung out in Manhattan Beach. I was like, we've got to share this with the rest of the percussion community. So thanks so much to Devin for doing this. Thank you guys for spending your Sunday with us. All this information and additional replays and PDF handouts can be found on my website, which is huei-yuan.com/periscope. And then if you add another / lesson number 7, like lesson 7, lesson 6, we're on 7 now, but there's lessons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 going all the way through. And there's all these PDFs for free. I mean, guys, listen, let me say that again. These lessons are all free. You're welcome to download them, print them out, print out 5 copies, share them with your friends. Imagine if you printed all of them out and you shared it with your drumline. This is all about building percussion community and elevating the level of access and education that we can get to everyone who's out there. Okay? Devin, where can everyone find you online if they want to reach out to you and stalk you online?
Pretty much everything is DK and then Koning. So DKKONING. That's like my Instagram, Snapchat, and then you can just find me on Facebook with my name, Devin Koning. DEVONKONING.
Yeah, and guys, sorry we ran out of time today. We weren't able to answer the Snapchat questions that we got today, but we'll take a look at those and then maybe we'll save them for a future Ask Huei. Okay? All right. This is the end of the lesson. Thank you guys so much. We're going to sign off here. And once we get wrapped up, we'll sign on for a little bit and we'll take a few more questions. Tonight is also going to be Devin staying over for dinner. Mom's visiting from out of town. Devin's going to have his first authentic home-cooked Chinese meal. So maybe we'll give you guys some shots of the dinner that Mom's been cooking up a storm today. So I'm
pretty excited.
Yeah.
All I've had to this point is like the most Americanized crap, like Panda Express and P.F. Chang's, and he was like, "Dude, you're embarrassing me. Stop even talking to me about this."
When we were talking to him, I was like, "Hey, Devin, do you like Chinese food?" He's like, "Yeah, I mean, I like Chinese food." I was like, "What kind of Chinese food have you had?" He's like, "Well, I've had like orange chicken, chow mein," and I was like, so the answer is no, you haven't had real Chinese food. All right, so if you sign back on here in a little bit, we'll give you a shot of some real, authentic, home-cooked Chinese food. Thank you guys again for watching. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.
See you guys.